Hello, and welcome back to Owens Bay. We're just going to do a quick little flyby of our first city on the map, the city of New Sunderland. I think it's about time we came back here for some updates. There are a lot of new assets available, and the city could do with some fresh ideas and some revisions. But before we get into that, just around this hillside is our newly named town of Farwell. This is going to be a tourist destination on our map, and while it's been a lot of work to get it done, I'm really happy with the results, and I'm really excited to show it off. My name is Geifs, and let's get started. Okay, so before we get into the town proper, I just want to do a quick little follow-up from last week's episode. In that episode, I was expressing a bit of unhappiness about not being able to properly place buildings along this hillside without it drastically deforming the landscape, and one viewer in the comments left a message saying, why don't I just move the buildings into place? And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's give that a try and see what we come up with. And I have a few other fun little things to do here to really tie it all together into the landscape. Now, I did this more or less as a little bit of an experiment. I don't think building like this is quite ready for prime time yet. There's a lot of issues. The biggest issue here is, in order to get this to work properly, I need houses that don't have driveways. And I was only able to I think I only found maybe 3 or 4 of them, which, with such a limited number of assets, it's not really something I'm going to be able to replicate over large segments of the map. But I think there's some ideas here I can incorporate into other areas of the map. So the great thing about Move It is I can move the buildings higher up on the hillside so they don't look like they're cutting in. The bad part is the distortions to the walkways and the lawns and stuff is quite bad. So I have to come up with some clever ideas here to try to hide some of this and work them into the landscape a little better. So one thing I'm going to use here is Harbor Master J has these fun little assets of stairs. Unfortunately, these aren't on the mod store. These are a local install, and they are a little finicky to use right now. We're also going to use these little platforms from the skater park to make some other stairs as well. These are great if you don't have access to these stair assets. You could stack these and they will make fairly nice looking stairs. I'm also going to use these prop pillars. These are also from Harbor Master J. They're essentially, rather than the pillars that distort the ground, these are just turned into props, and I can move them around and insert them into the hillside, and they're not going to cause any distortions of the landscape. And we're going to use these to build kind of a makeshift retaining wall. And we're going to try to disguise some of the larger gaps with boulders. We're going to place them in such a way that it looks like it's a rock face rather than individual boulders. here I am, I'm just using some of those platforms as some stairs to join it to the sidewalk. And we're going to be using a lot of trees and bushes to hide all the imperfections, and there are a considerable number of imperfections here. Static Noise added to his decal pack a few of these wall stone textures, which I'm going to use to disguise the pillars. This works fairly well, although the decals bleed considerably over onto everything around them. You can see it bleeding onto the bushes and stuff there. So like I said, this is not a perfect technique by any means. It's just more of a like playing around, seeing what might be possible. And there are a few different variations on these stair assets. I'm going to use a couple of different ones here. I probably could have used more stairs. There are some fairly janky sections to this, but this was just a quick little build just to kind of test out the idea, not necessarily to focus on making it a perfect detailed build. And here's a set of wooden stairs. And surprisingly, the Sims actually, when they arrive at these homes, they actually walk up these stairs, although the animations they're kind of like sunk into the ground stuff. It's not perfect, but it's kind of neat to see them actually walking up the stairwells. Now, I'm not going to show all of the building I do here, but I do have a little mini cinematic here to kind of show off the final results, and that's coming up shortly. Okay, here we go. So this is going to kind of point out some of the issues I'm having, like the decals are bleeding over. There's this weird kind of tearing along the edge of the road. I could have paid more attention to the detail, like obviously some stairs there would have been appropriate. But I like the overall effect, and it's really pretty cool to be able to get in this close and be able to take a really good look at all this. But you can see the bleeding of the decals there on the side. So not really good for close-up work, but as we pan out here, looks really pretty nice at a distance. But without more house assets, this is, I think, a little limited. Okay, here we go. Finally, the main town, the downtown, which took me a long time to figure out exactly how it was going to look. First thing we need to do is move the hospital. It is in the way of where I want the main focus of the town to be. So we're going to put it over here, and this is more or less going to be its final location. It gets moved a little bit more later, but it's going to be in this area. And for service buildings, we're going to go with the German asset pack, the police station, and the fire station. I think these buildings are wonderful, and they're so suited for a small historic town. we need to get rid of a few houses here. This is all going to be the focus of our main town now. And I wanted a big building to represent the city hall or courthouse or something. Going to go with the university library. This is a mod that turns the library into a small university. So this building actually is functional. It will serve a purpose. But for our purposes, we're going to treat it as our city hall. And I'm going to use some parks around it to hopefully get some people to use the area. This is a bit of a process. It takes me a while to kind of sort through it and get everything situated in a way that I like. I think I should probably talk a bit about the town. What am I trying to build here? With the announcement of the European asset packs, especially the German one, the thing that popped into my head almost immediately, because I'm building cities in the Pacific Northwest region, was the town of Leavenworth in Washington State. Now, I've never personally been here, but I've seen photos of it. And essentially the backstory for Leavenworth is it was at one point a resource-based economy, basically logging. And around the 1950s, that kind of went into decline, and the town decided to pivot to a tourist industry, and they leaned heavily into a Bavarian-themed cityscape for their town. Unfortunately, in the German pack, don't really have enough Bavarian-style buildings to pull it off, so I'm going to go for something a little more generic. Kind of more European in general, so mix and matching a whole bunch of things. I'm going to insert a little photo here of Leavenworth so you can kind of get the idea of what I'm aiming for. I'm not trying to copy this, I'm just using it as for a bit of inspiration. And there's going to be a bit of process here as I shuffle buildings around, try to get a look and fit everything together in interesting ways. And I'm going to let some buildings naturally zone in. I find letting some things just naturally zone in adds a bit of unexpected variation, which may or may not work. I end up deleting a lot of these out afterwards, but sometimes something might pop up that you're able to work with and you didn't have to really think about it too much. Now, like I said, the parks here go for a bit of revision. Here, I decided that this park is much more suitable. It matches the building a bit better. It lines up a little better. Although this is all really janky, and it takes me several attempts to get this all sorted out. And here I go, deleting the homeless again. Now, I got a little too zealous over deleting out park benches, not really realizing that there's still going to be animation for them to sit, so I have to put a few of them back so it doesn't look really weird. At some point here, I did a quick recolor of the building. I was trying to use the colors of the German assets, and I got this kind of odd color palette. I ended up keeping it though. So one thing I have to kind of remind myself here is I'm not trying to make a European town. I'm making a North American recreation of a European town. There has to be a fair number of North American style buildings in here to balance it out, so it doesn't look, it still somehow looks North American, if that makes any sense. And at the time by the time I'm editing this, the UK pack had just dropped, and I was able to squeeze a few UK assets into the build, but you're going to have to hang around to the cinematics at the end to actually see where those end up. I place a fair number of motels and hotels around here, but unfortunately they're not getting any business. I tried putting in like a considerable number of parks to kind of boost up the attractiveness or tourist draw, but nothing seems to be working. I don't really know what's going on with them. I'll have to play around with that a bit more. I thought here it'd be fun to have a bit of a different road layout for what's essentially the main tourist street in the town. And I thought some side parking would be kind of interesting. And I thought a bit of a park landscape along the river's edge here would be quite nice. And spent a bit of time trying to come up with something a little more custom looking than the parks just right out of the box. And we're going to delete the homeless again. I pretty much delete everything out of this park. The only thing I keep is the circle. I don't even like this surface texture here. And I thought these giant stone heads would make a fun little sculpture. Sometimes drawing in these surfaces can be a real annoyance. Just so, I don't know, leave a comment below if you've seen the demo for the new surface painting mod that's going to be available at some point. It's still in beta. I think they're still working out some of the kinks. Yeah, that's going to change everything about how a lot of this stuff is done in the future. Can't wait for it to actually come out. Unlike the real town of Leavenworth, this is actually fairly close by to major urban population centers. There's even a transit stop here, like the light rail service ends here. That kind of changes some of the dynamics of the town. It makes it, obviously it makes it its own unique place. That's kind of why there's a large bit of suburban sprawl right next door to this area. Being a tourist attraction, there's going to be quite a few roadside restaurants and stuff like that. This one here is something maybe a little more upscale. Certainly a lot of fun to try to figure out a novel way to incorporate some European assets into this particular regional build and somehow make them still seem like they all work and fit together without having the result of making like a fake little European town or something like that. So this has been a lot of fun trying to figure out how to make these work for my particular build. And I rely quite a bit on a lot of signature buildings in order to get some distinctive architecture. Unfortunately, using all these signature buildings really distorts the economy of the game, but there's not much I could do about it. And I rather have the more visually interesting buildings than just try to rely on the base assets. And of course, any North American city is not complete with lots and lots of surface parking. And I wanted to try something out on the roads to make them look a little more unique. So we're going to do these pedestrian crossings through what essentially is becoming our tourist district. These aren't perfect. Sometimes working with these surface detailing tools is a bit finicky. Okay, there's a bit of missing footage here. It's not very much. It's essentially, this is the last stop on our light rail line. Also, this parking lot beside it, which turns out it was desperately needed. A lot of people are parking in there. And behind it on the other side here, we have another city park and a bit of a social housing development using the social housing from the French asset pack. These are beautiful buildings, very usable in any number of types of cities. And our final location for our medical clinic. Okay, now I'm going to spend a bit of time just detailing up this little elementary school, trying to turn it into like a recreational hub. I already have one soccer field on the map. I didn't really want another one, but I did want the park. So I'm going to delete away pretty much everything from this. And then we're going to use a bunch of decals to, essentially what I'm trying to, the look I'm going for here is like a school playground. Here, what I'm trying to do is make some vines crawling up the side of the building. I'm using the poplar saplings for this. It works. It's a bit finicky. I have no doubt that in the future, when we have custom assets, we probably have some proper assets that are purpose made for this. I'm going to use this, I think it's the real estate mansion, as historic house in the town. Maybe it's the mayor house, I'm not exactly sure. In this context of this town, it might be like open to the public for public tours. It might even be a museum. And I wanted to build like a public square of some sort. This we can imagine being used for festivals, farmers markets, possibly even night markets, which have become very trendy in this area of the world now. And I'm going to reuse some of these posters from lower Queensport here just to liven it up a bit. Now, I did say that trying to put decals on top of props sometimes make them disappear, but sometimes you just gamble and see if you can get away with it. This time it paid off. Of course, most of these shops along the main road here are going to be probably restaurants and bars and coffee shops. Although I really need to find a smaller version of this sign. I'm going to start building out the rest of the town. There's going to be a lot more North American style buildings. It's essentially the part of town where the actual work gets done. Although here I am placing a few more of the German assets and putting in some fun recoloring on them. I really do wish these signature buildings, at least some of them, should have like tourist modifiers on them. Like they should also work as tourist attractions for some of the more fancy buildings. And I thought I'd reuse this decal from Lower Queensport. To be honest, I have to kind of reuse some of these decals. They're just sitting on my hard drive, taking up space, so I need to reuse them. Also, some signage I didn't use in Lower Queensport. I thought this might be a good opportunity. And of course, what tourist town is not complete with its local brewbucks? If you remember Sid's garage from Raven's Peak, I really wanted to reuse those assets. It made for a really nice mechanics garage. I don't necessarily want to repeat Sid's garage. That's kind of like a unique structure. So I reconfigured them, put them together in different ways, used a slightly different gas station, and came up with a different looking building, and recolored them in a way that turned them into its own unique business. And I came up with a kind of a fun type of business that this is going to be. It's going to be a bike shop. And the owner has a rather fancy car. I can't tell you how tempted I was to rip out most of these houses and replace them with the UK houses. There's so much more fitting for this area than these houses, but I can't do that. That's just too much work. And now we're just going to start putting in the final trees for the region. And of course, no small town is not complete without some sort of lumberyard or hardware store, which this is going to represent. I think that brings us to the end of this episode. This has certainly been a lot of fun. Something I wasn't planning on building when I first started the region. I had no idea I'd be building this sort of town, but I have to say I am very happy with the results. If you have stuck around to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate everybody who sticks around to the very end, and I hope you enjoy the cinematics that follow. If you got anything of value out of this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. Every new viewer just makes making more of these episodes that much easier to do. And I'm just going to draw in the final districts here. Obviously the town of Farwell, but we have this suburban area below here, which I need a name for. And possibly this industrial park, although I'm just happy calling it Industrial Park. If you have any ideas, let me know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. And until next episode, take care. Bye.